In this video, we're going to go over all of your in-webinar options and buttons. I'm going to first start out by showing you some of the options that are here outside of the webinar room. So here you can edit or view your webinar details. You can join the room so that you can start the webinar as a host. You can archive the webinar. You can reschedule the webinar. You can view the chat history, or you can recreate or clone the webinar. In this case, I want to go ahead and join the room so that we can get started with our webinar. Every time you start, this little pop-up is going to come up unless you push on skip. This will actually give you a brief walkthrough of all of your options as well, but since I'm here doing this with you, I'm going to go ahead and skip this today. So let me go over some of the options that you have. We have over here where you can view your attendees and co-hosts. You have the status of your webinar here. Currently it's offline, and that's just because I haven't started the webinar yet. We can record our webinar here once we've started the webinar. This is where we will start the webinar. We can turn our voices on or off by pressing this mic button. We can turn our camera on or off by pressing this camera button. We can share our screen. We can install the Chrome extension. Now please keep in mind that you will need to install this Chrome extension prior to starting your webinar if you're planning on using the screen share option. And here, if you want to use a live stream URL for Facebook or YouTube, you would get that here. This is where you would put any call to action messages you want to share while you're on the webinar. You can put the message, the link, the button text, and the length that it's going to last. You also have handouts, which if you have any, you would have added them while you were setting up your webinar. You also have the chat area here, any notes you want to take here, and if you ever need to get back, you just need to click this backstage button, and you'll be shown all of these links again. So I'm going to go ahead and start the webinar. And as you can see, my status has changed to on air. And we know my mic is working because we see the green flash every time I talk, which is great. So again, if I wanted to record this webinar, I could click on Start Recording. If I wanted to mute my mic for any particular reason, I could do it here. If I wanted them to see my camera, I would go ahead and turn that on here. So let me first show you how to install the Chrome extension. Again, this should be done before you go live. So once you click on that button, you'll be taken to the screen in Chrome. Now I've already added it, so my message says added to Chrome, but if I hadn't added it, it would have just asked me to add it to Chrome. And then I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to start a screen share. Now, you have two options. You can share your entire screen or you can share your application window. If you're on this webinar screen, you are never going to want to share your entire screen, and let me show you why. This is why you don't want to share your entire screen. Generally, when people use this, they use it to share a PowerPoint so they can go through their slides. And if you are going to show them different browser windows, you might want to just open up a separate browser and choose that as your application. So I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing because we don't want anybody viewing the webinar to see that forever screen. And I'm going to go back to screen share. And I'm going to choose the application window. Now everything that you have open will show up in this application window. If you have it minimized down in your toolbar, it will not show up. It needs to be open behind your browser. So I'm going to go ahead and choose to share this Excel page. And you'll see in a moment, there's my Excel page. If I were showing a PowerPoint, I could leave this screen up so that I could click through my slides, or I can come back over here and everything I see in this little window is what my viewers are seeing as well. I also want to show you what it looks like and where you can actually find those attendees when you have them. You can either click here or you can, they both open up the same box. And you can see that I have an attendee here. I can choose to send them a message, I can make them a presenter, or I can ban them from the webinar. Now on the user's end, you can see that they can see the spreadsheet that I'm sharing. If they were to type a message like hi, I can come back over here, view the chat, and you notice that red window, that red envelope that popped up. That means I have a chat. So I click on chat, and here's where I can start whatever the users have typed out to me, and I can respond back. And the user will see this. And it also shows on their end that they're watching live, so they know they're watching a live webinar. If you want to type in any notes, you can do that here. You can close this if you'd like. And if you want to go back to the main menu, just click on Backstage. So those are all the buttons for your webinar. Now I can choose to stop the recording. And as soon as I stop the webinar, I'm going to get a pop-up that asks me if I want to redirect my users. So let's go ahead and end the webinar. It asks me first, do I want to stop the webinar? Yes, I do. And then it asks if I want to redirect my attendees. If I do, my users are going to be redirected to whatever I have pre-set up in my webinar. In this case, it's just going to the thank you page. So those are all of your webinar room buttons. And once you've ended the webinar, you'll be brought back to this page. If you want to go back and see your active webinars, just click on the active webinar tab here.